You're listening to Well and Worthy Life, the podcast that helps midlife women feel better, look better, and live better. I'm your host, Deanna, menopause wellness coach turned to lifestyle creator, and I'm here to give you all of my tips, tools, and real talk you need to thrive in this second half of life. Welcome back to the Well and Worthy Life podcast. I'm so glad you're joining me today. Okay, we're going to talk about a topic that I know a lot of you can relate to. I sure can. We're going to talk about belly fat. Last week, I talked about that was one of the first signs I had that sleeping was actually my first sign, not being able to sleep well, but I had no idea that was related to perimenopause and menopause. I felt like that was my life circumstance. Anyway, really, belly fat was the thing that showed up for me that I was like, what is going on? So we're going to talk about belly fat today. And hopefully by the end of this podcast, you're going to have some ideas of what you can do about it. Because if you're in perimenopause, postmenopause, you've probably experienced that belly fat that you're like, what is happening? So I've got some notes here, just like normal, so that I don't get off topic. First of all, I want you to understand that it's not your fault, that there is some scientific research. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. So I was about 50 years old. It was during the time that I owned a Pure Barre studio, and I wasn't doing anything different. I was doing everything the same as I was doing in my 40s when I did not have the belly fat. But come about 50, 51, all of a sudden, I noticed, like I said, I was still doing the same workout, still eating the same way. Nothing had changed except my body composition was starting to change. And it was so frustrating. I will tell you, I looked around my studio when I owned the Pure Barre studio, and I saw other women my age and older, the same thing. They were working out, they were doing all the right things, and all of a sudden, we had this belly fat that had never been there before. I used to gain weight in my thighs or in my hips, but not in my belly. So it was very frustrating. And I decided it was during my coaching that I had to do something about it. This was 10 years ago. So you have to remember, there wasn't a lot of people talking about this. Now you're going to hear a lot of people talking about this. But it was something that I didn't know what was going on. So let's talk about that. Why does belly fat show up in midlife? And there's so many things that play into this, but I'm going to hit on 4 things that really matter. And the biggest thing is the hormonal shifts. So during perimenopause, our hormones are shifting and we're starting to lose our estrogen. And when estrogen declines, it changes where the fat is stored. So that's not your fault. Those things happen. So more fat shifts to our abdomen, and it's for survival and protection. It's not willpower. It is just biology. So that is one of the major reasons why all of a sudden, when we're doing everything the way we used to do, it is showing up. Okay. And it's just like very frustrating. And then our insulin sensitivity changes on top of all that, right? And that means that our blood sugar regulation becomes less efficient, and more glucose equals more storage around the belly. Hello. So again, it's science. It is not your fault. It's not willpower. It's just the way our bodies are made. Then stress. And this was one of the things that was happening to me too, because at that time, my mother had just passed away, and I was taking care of my stepfather who had Lewy body dementia. So when we have our stress and our cortisol is elevated, chronic stress equals inflammation, belly fat, all of those things. And the other thing is all of a sudden now we're trying to fix this. So we're over exercising and under eating, or we could just be over exercising. I've seen women who are over exercising, doing too hard of exercises, and that belly fat will not go away. Remember, it's not your fault. And then the last thing science revolved is this muscle loss, because we start losing muscle as early as in our 30s. And so when you're losing muscle, that makes us have more fat, right? And it slows down our metabolism. And so less muscle equals that our bodies hold on to more fat easily. Now that we know why, what can we do about it, right? So here's the biggest thing you need to know. What doesn't work anymore is eating less and exercising more. That's not going to work. We could adapt in our 20s and 30s, but, once you start hitting perimenopause, that will not work for you anymore. More cardio does not help. It can actually add stress on your body, which makes you hold on to that fat right there in that belly. Skipping meals, don't do that. That's not going to help you, because all that's going to do is, again, stress your body, make you hold on to the fat. You're either under eating or something. So just skipping meals is not going to work. And I know there's a lot of talk, and I used to coach a program that led with intermittent fasting. And while that works for some people, when you're in perimenopause, it is probably not the best idea, because you are stressing your body out. So we'll get to some things that you can do. But punishing workouts, no more of those. Sometimes the harder we work, again, stress can come in so many different forms. It can be mental stress and it can be physical stress. And when we stress our body too much, it's going to hold on to that fat. And if we want to lose that belly fat, we cannot do these workouts that are just so hard. You've got to pace yourself. I talked about that again last week about, protecting my energy and not doing punishing workouts. But it's also because I don't want to hang on to that belly fat. Just had this conversation not too long ago with somebody, but she was talking about it was so weird. She backed off of her workouts and added more walking in and not so much cardio, and she actually lost weight. And it's because what happens when we overexercise and we exercise too hard, our cortisol levels go up, which makes us hold on to that belly fat. And constant calorie or even macro tracking. I know some people love to track their macros, and macro tracking can be good for a period of time. But I do not think that is something to do long term. That's not a sustainable lifestyle. And what we need to find is something that we can do that is sustainable. So if it worked in our 20s, 30s, and even our 40s, maybe some at the beginning, right? It's probably not going to work as you go on through perimenopause and menopause. Like I said, mine hit about 50, and I was like, what in the world is going on here? And what can I do about it? So I had to do a lot of research. You may know I got my coaching certification from IIN, Institute of Integrative Nutrition. And I learned a lot through that. But also, as I was coaching my other clients, I learned so much from that also. And there are certain things that we can do that can help us lose that belly fat. So let's talk about those things, because I know that's where you want to go too. First of all, strength training, resistance training, and I may get some pushback here. Some people believe you need to be in the gym lifting heavy weight. And while that may work for some people, it doesn't work for everyone. Because if you don't like it, you're not going to stick with it. And I am not a gym person at all. I am more of a fitness boutique. So Pure Barre bar, fit Pilates. Those things really work for me. Do I get in a gym sometime and lift heavy weights? Yes, I do. But that is not my consistent exercise. Probably 5 to 6 times a week, you'll find me in a bar class or in a Pilates class. Now, these are not easy bar classes or easy Pilates class. So my bar classes, I go to Pure Barre. They have actually, since I was owning and everything, they've added a class with more strength, with heavier weights, which is great. So I'll do that class a couple of days a week. Then the other thing with Pilates, I don't do just a regular reformer, although I think a regular reformer is really great. I do the Legree method, which is on a mega reformer, which it is heavy resistance. Again, you've got to figure out what's going to work for you, but you do need to be building that muscle. And what is it that's going to help you build that muscle? And you should be doing that 2 to 4 times a week because we've got to work on building that muscle since we're losing it so fast. When we build the muscle, it improves our insulin sensitivity, which is really important, right? And listen, here's a good thing about this. It's even short workouts help us. So you don't have to spend, in fact, I would encourage you not to spend over an hour in the gym. The classes I go to are 50, 55 minutes, somewhere around in there. And that is plenty. 40 minutes lifting heavy weights is plenty of time, especially if you're doing it 4 times a week. So don't think that more is better. We're trying to build muscle, and then you have to give your muscle some time to recover. The other thing, and if you follow me on Instagram, you know this, I talk about this all the time, is protein. Every meal needs to have protein. I base my meals off of my protein. The first thing I think about is where is my protein coming from? That's my main focus. So again, I'm not big into tracking macros. I have tracked macros in the past. And my biggest thing is I want to make sure I'm getting enough protein. And my goal for me is to get at least 100 grams of protein a day. And then I focus on my fiber because fiber is important also. So that's where I start building my meals because I need to build muscle. And in order to build muscle, I need protein. It also helps us stabilize our blood sugar, especially when you eat that at the very beginning. So I'll eat the protein before I'll eat carbs or fat because that will help stabilize my blood sugar. Also, when I'm eating the fiber, that helps too, because it breaks down, it kind of blunts that blood sugar insulin. Protein, like I said, supports muscle, and protein helps with our cravings. So, those are really important things, really to think about. So, we need to be strength training or resistance training 2 to 4 times a week. We need to be building our meals around protein and figure out what is that protein goal for you and think about your meals. Where is your protein coming from? You know, you want it clean protein too. I would encourage you. There was a time that I relied on bars. I'm not a big protein powder person. I just don't love drinking my food. I want to be eating my food. But smoothies with protein powder can be a good source if you've got a good, clean protein powder. So really research that before just adding in any kind of protein, any kind of supplemental protein like that. I like to get my protein from chicken. Eggs don't have a ton of protein, to be honest with you, 7 grams of protein. So, go and chat GPT and pull up like foods high in protein. I like grass fed meat, chicken, like I said. I eat cottage cheese a good bit, yogurt, things like that, things that are high protein. So figure out what those foods are for you and then build your meals around those foods. The other thing is, and this is a huge one that I just don't think is talked about enough, is stress reduction. And this is a non negotiable. Like I said, I think that part of my belly fat was inflammation and stress that I was holding on to as I was taking care of my stepfather who had Lewy body dementia. And when we have stress, that raises our cortisol, which makes us hold on to that fat. So no matter what else we're doing, if we're cutting our calories, if we are exercising like crazy, that fat will not release if we are so stressed. So here's some things to think about. I think this is so silly. At least when I first heard it, I don't think it's silly now, but when I first heard it, I was like, what? But we need to breathe. Try that with me right now. Take a deep breath in and then let it go. You'll feel your whole body change. We are shallow breathing every single day, every single minute. We don't stop to catch our breath. We live in a fast paced world, and just sitting and breathing and feeling your breath can change everything, changes your nervous system, and it helps to lower that cortisol. So, some other things is walking. That's why my goal is to get 10,000 steps in a day. It is hard sometimes, and especially it is hard when it is cold outside, but that is my goal. And I don't try to go at a fast pace. I go at a leisurely pace. I'm not in a hurry. I am enjoying, I love to walk outside. I'm trying to enjoy nature, the beauty, things like that. Again, those are things that are stress reducing when you can just be, just be. And then sleep's huge. Sleep may be, and I think it is, the most important part of our health. And like I said at the very beginning, my sleep was affected in my 40s, and I thought it was lifestyle. I thought it was what I was going through. I was going through a really bad divorce in my early 40s, and I really thought that's where what was wrong with my sleep. Where looking back now, I know it was perimenopause. I was probably low on progesterone. Really focusing on your sleep habits, going to bed at the same time every night, getting up at the same time every morning, getting that morning sunlight in your eyes, keeping your room dark, getting off screens an hour before you go to bed. You know the things, you've heard them so many times. Really protect your sleep. And I really protect my sleep. So that can help. And here's another one that I talked about this last week, saying no more and saying no so that you're saying yes to yourself. Because when we're saying yes to everything, we are stressed. We've got too many things going on. So this is, I mean, I would say this one, stress reduction is, it's a non-negotiable when you want to get rid of that belly fat. You've got to start focusing there. I think, like I said, I think that this is a big part that people miss. You hear about muscle strength training, you hear about protein, but are you hearing about how important stress reduction is? And then the other thing is supporting your hormones gently. Okay, so that's different for everyone, but I would encourage you to see your doctor and talk to your doctor about hormone replacement therapy. It has been a game changer for me. It's so I just think, why wouldn't I replace my hormones that are starting to go down? And there's been a lot of controversy around it, but people are learning now that is a great way. As our estrogen declines, it affects our cognitive health, our brain health. It affects so much, our bone health. And so we need that estrogen. So really go talk to your doctor, see about hormone replacement therapy. Consistent meals, that helps your hormones. If you are consistent, if you're withholding food from yourself, skipping meals, that's not doing yourself a favor. That's, not supporting your hormones, puts you into stress, all the things. Adequate carbs. We need carbs. We should not eliminate any food group. doesn't mean that they can be good carbs. Potatoes. I remember there was a time in my life I wouldn't even eat potatoes because I thought, oh, those aren't good for me. But that's got fiber in it. Has berries, all these things, berries. I really love berries, bananas. I mean, think about we need all the food groups. We need carbs, we need fats, and we need protein. Supplements can always help, and I've talked about the supplements that I like to take. I take my bioactive peptides, I take magnesium. I think supplements is a really important part of our journey, but you've got to make sure that you're taking the right supplements for you. And then daily movement is better than just hard workouts. Again, it goes back to the stress thing and it raises your cortisol. Working out 4 to 5 days a week, doing some, I'd say at least 4 days a week, doing some kind of strength training. You could do it in 2 days. I like to spread it out over time. Walking, all of those things, mobility exercises. As we get older, we don't move as well. So, really working on mobility exercises. Again, you can go in ChatGPT and put in, give me some mobility exercises for a 50-year-old woman. Or, gosh, just scroll on Instagram and you can find a lot of mobility work if you just, especially if you put it in that search bar, put in mobility exercises, and you'll see that your feed will be full of mobility exercises. And then again, low stress movement, that walking. You don't have to walk fast, just walk. Grab a friend, enjoy the day. I think that that's the other thing is that it goes back to the stress reduction helps being around your friend, especially friends that are calm and no drama. You want to surround yourself with friends like that. But all of those things are really important to helping you with the belly fat. I want to challenge you with 3 mindset shifts. Number 1, belly fat is not your fault. Okay? Belly fat does not equal failure. It's just something that happens, it's scientific, and there are things that we can do to try and combat that belly fat. Second, health does not equal a flat stomach. And this is something I really struggle with. I'll be honest with you. I do not have a flat stomach and it really bothers me. But I have to understand that I've had 3 children. I am 60 years old and I can do everything right. And I'm still not going to have a flat stomach. Maybe if I went and had a tummy tuck or something like that, I would. And some days I think about it. But overall, I'm like, I just have to realize that. And we have to support our midlife bodies and not punish them. Again, these are mindset shifts. We have to shift our mindset from being so critical of ourselves. We are so hard on ourselves and treat yourself like you would treat a friend. You wouldn't give her a hard time about her belly fat. Why do it to yourself? And look, I'm talking to myself right now. So here's the thing I hope you've gotten from this podcast that you can see some way that you can start today to figure this belly fat thing out if that's your problem. If you've heard something today and you're like, oh, I need to share this with my friend. We were just talking about this the other day. I love it when you share it with your friend. If this resonates with you, share that with me too. I love hearing from you guys. The thing is, this season is not about beating ourselves up. It's about feeling strong, steady, and supported, not smaller. So really think about not beating yourself up. Remember, it's not your fault. It's scientific based why all of a sudden we have this belly fat, but there are things that we can do about it. It's surrounding yourself with the right people and the right information. And don't try and work out harder and cut your calories and all those things because it will not work long term. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Again, if you found something here that you liked, please share it with your friends. I appreciate you here so much, and you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thanks for being here, friend. Don't forget to subscribe, share this episode, and keep choosing What makes you feel well and worthy?